Okay, so Jeffrey Bradshaw, would you tell us just a little bit about you?
Sure. I'm married, 4 kids, live in Pensacola, Florida, and I'm a research scientist at the Institute for Human and Machine Cognition.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yes.
Okay, so how did you become involved with BYU Studies? How did you become involved in the symposium?
Well, I've been a reader for a long, long time, and Jack Welch has always been an encouragement to me in the things I've written and done. I recently began to work on an article on the Ezekiel mirror at Dura Europos, and he thought it'd be a good subject for the symposium.
Right, okay, well, so can you tell our viewers what it is that your posters are basically talking about?
Sure. Here we're seeing a very exciting discovery that was made in 1930 of an intact synagogue buried by sand, and when it was uncovered, it was full of color murals.
Oh, wow.
Which nobody expected, since they all assumed that Jewish law prohibited pictorial descriptions of things. Nobody had ever seen anything like it.
Right.
The most significant part of those murals was this area of worship, the Torah scroll niche, where the holiest part of the synagogue was something called the Ezekiel Cycle. The Ezekiel Cycle and the Torah scroll niche show that the theme of this synagogue was resurrection and eternal life, an ascent to heaven, something that we find in many of the Jewish beliefs that relate to early Christian beliefs.
Right.
Here we find a tree of life depicted above the Torah scroll, where Jacob is blessing his 12 sons on the left, and Ephraim and Manasseh separately on the right, and at the top they're reunited at the end of the restoration of Israel, a theme that should be also very much at home in the Book of Mormon and in Mormon belief. Here is God represented as an individual with two attendants here at the throne.
I see.
Symbols of immortality are throughout here. We find here the temple, the menorah, the conch shell, which is always sitting above the veil in ancient temples. Here we find the story of Abraham and Isaac, the sacrifice. Some stories tell that Isaac actually died during the sacrifice and was resurrected. That may have been a ritual resurrection and death rather than a physical one. One of the reasons we know that is because in the back here we see a figure entering behind a curtain being pulled back. And that is being seen as a resurrection scene, entering into the curtain like the tabernacle, with the hand of God raised above that opened that tent for him to receive his ritual resurrection.
Wow.
Here we find the actual story. Am I going okay?
No, you're
Okay.
doing great. Keep going.
Okay, here we find the actual story of Ezekiel in 3 different realms. He starts out in mortality. He has a scene in the heavenly realms, and then is returned to mortality again, where he's actually put to death. We notice that in these scenes, he has 3 different changes of clothing. In the beginning, he has worldly clothes, this Persian smock in deep red. Then he moves to a simple pink attire when he moves to this early stage. And then finally, during the resurrection scene, he's wearing a special white robe. When he is later beheaded and put to death, he's again wearing his worldly clothing. He moved back to the realm of death. We notice also interesting things with the hand of God represented in the thing 4 times and being extended to him. And it's interesting because the hand is represented differently in 2 of the times than 2 of the others. In 2 of the scenes, the palm is forward, and the next 2, the nails are forward. And it's the right hand in both cases, but somebody wanted to be sure that you knew that there was a change in that scene. We think also of the image here of the Jewish prayer shawl, that as you move forward in the prayer shawl is moved from one shoulder to the other. Here we have actually the hand being represented, being reversed in each case.
Wow.
Here's the actual story. Ezekiel is first of all prophesying to the bones, as you find in Ezekiel 37. Actually, the flesh is on the bones here of the dead. And then there's a special mountain of transition that's shown. Notice there, instead of the one olive tree in this scene, the olive tree is divided. They have a little different appearance. One is more vigorous than the other. We think, perhaps, of the tame and wild olive trees, because this is a scene of division and of judgment. The righteous and the wicked who are being passed through here and being reassembled. Their bodies are coming back to life. Then we move to this scene where the dead are actually being called forth by Ezekiel. Although in Jewish literature it said the power of resurrection is in the hand of God, clearly it's being delegated to Ezekiel, who's using a special gesture here to resurrect the dead. We know that gesture is a gesture of resurrection not only from Jewish literature, but also there are murals in early Christian literature that shows Christ resurrecting the dead by that same gesture.
Right.
These figures are the four winds coming together, showing the dead being gathered from the four corners of the earth. We notice that there are others here with Ezekiel in the heavenly realms. 10 figures, and we say, why 10? Some have suggested that it was the 10 tribes of Israel. However, why should 2 of the tribes be excluded, especially when we have this image here of all Israel being brought together in the restoration?
Right.
The best answer I've found is that 10 is the minimal number for a Jewish assembly for prayer. A minyan, you have to have 10 assembled members to be able to hold a prayer. We notice these people are in the attitude of prayer, dressed in white robes, with their hands up and palms forward, praising God. We notice also that they have special markings on their robes. We're not only found in the murals of Dura Europos, but in a box outside the town. There was actually a box buried, and for reasons that no scholar can really explain, marks were cut out of certain parts of the clothing and put in this box that was buried outside the walls.
Interesting.
Finally, am I going too long?
No, you're doing great.
Trying to talk fast.
Yeah.
Finally, we notice this mountain is now reunited, representing the restoration of Israel. The tree has also come back together, and notice it vigorously sprouting new branches and new fruit. This can represent many different things. We think again of the olive tree bearing ripe fruit. We can think of the tree of life, which in the Jewish mystical texts of the Zohar, they think of when Adam had his transgression, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge were split, and that those two would come together into one tree at the last day. We also think of the sticks of Ezekiel. The word etz in Hebrew means not only stick, but tree. So we can think about his notion of the tree of Judah and the tree of Joseph coming together in the last day, which is exactly the theme we find here.
Right.
Here again, Ezekiel is returned to the world and asked to show his faithfulness even until the sacrifice of his own life.
Well, thank you so much for bringing this research to light.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations on all your hard work and effort. And thank you for spending a few minutes telling us about it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be
Enjoy
here.
the symposium.
Okay.